Why don't you explain people to what the Wallace Line is? Because that's really interesting.
Okay,
Fascinating.
so Wallace would be Darwin, one of Darwin's contemporaries. Actually, Wallace is the guy who almost scooped Darwin. So Darwin, he was out in the 1830s, and by the 1850s, he had basically written his book, but he was terrified to publish. He wasn't going to publish because what it suggested was things that a lot of people would be very upset about. And even the scientific community at the time.
At the time, it was a radical notion.
Really radical, dangerous idea, thinking that it would disrupt social structures and things. So Darwin came up with his natural selection and wrote his book and put it away and kept it hidden. And Wallace was a younger man than him. And Wallace was out here. You have that map on the wall. So he's in the Indonesian archipelago, and he's in Malaysia, and he's looking at all this stuff. And it dawns on this guy. He's like, I think it's descent with modification over time. It looks to me like species can change into other species by modifications in descent over time. And somebody said to him, well, look, why don't you write to Chuck Darwin in London and tell him what you're thinking and see what Darwin says, because he's been kind of playing with this for a long time. So Wallace wrote to him, and Darwin got the letter and opens the letter, and there's his theory of natural selection, and he's like, So they agree that they will publish an article together about it, and that Darwin will then publish his book. So Wallace came to the exact same theory that Darwin had, independently of Darwin, and he's often, a lot of people don't know about him. What the line is between the island of Bali and Lombok is that stretch of ocean between those two islands. And this is where the Asia-Pacific flora and fauna on the Lombok side, and then the area of, well, here you've got the Asian continent, right? And it's right there where those two meet that body of water is deep enough that even when the water levels were very low during the Ice Age, so all the water's frozen up there in the North and South Pole, and the ocean levels were much lower, that area between those two islands was deep enough that it was never dry land, so there was no crossing there. And so that's what Wallace saw. He said the flora and fauna from Bali back into Asia, that's one thing. That's one group of organisms. The group of organisms from Lombok the other way is a totally different group of organisms, and these things have never been interacting.